I was born with the curiosity to explore the realms of darkness, to seek out the elusive shadows and question their existence, their never-ending convolution with the light. All things were born from this darkness. Question everything. Find your own truth, engage all mysteries, open your mind, and join me on my journey through the darkness. Alien Autopsy. I was 13 years old when the Fox television network aired the footage of an alien autopsy in 1995. The special, titled Alien Autopsy Fact or Fiction, broke rating records and became a pulp culture phenomenon. I remember it like it was yesterday. My entire family huddled together on the living room sofa, waiting in anticipation and excitement to get to see for the first time on network television a real extraterrestrial. Although my 13-year-old brain desperately wanted proof of alien visitors, the 17-minute clip left me disappointed. The alien was a victim of the infamous 1947 Roswell crash and appeared exactly the way you'd expect an alien to appear. Oversized head and eyes, grayish skin pigmentation, and disproportionately sized body. Examiners in surgical gear dissected the body with little care. The graininess of the film, along with the constant shaking, made it difficult to make out the details clearly, but did lend a certain credibility to the overall effect. The skin of the alien was contrived and rubbery, and was not believable whatsoever. Yet many of those who saw the program thought it to be authentic. Even Ray Santilli, the producer of the film, vouched for its authenticity, at least until 2006 when Santilli confessed the truth. The whole thing was set up in a living room in a London flat. Artist and sculptor John Humphreys was commissioned to create 2 dummy alien bodies using casts filled with sheep brains, jelly, and chicken entrails. The Russian Sleep Experiment. The Russian sleep experiment is one of the scariest stories I've ever heard. In the late 1940s, 5 prisoners of a Soviet research experiment were locked away together in an airtight chamber and dosed with an experimental gas in order to test the effects of prolonged sleep deprivation. They were promised freedom if they could go without sleep for 30 days. Researchers monitored their conversations electronically and observed them from behind 2-way mirrors. The experiment was uneventful until the 5th day, when the subjects began showing signs of stress and irritation and stopped talking to one another. Then, on the 9th day, the screaming began. It started with one prisoner, then another. One of the subjects screamed at the top of his lungs and ran around the room like a crazed man. Then all 5 of the subjects ripped apart the books they had been given for entertainment. The books were shred to pieces, shit on, and then plastered to the mirrors so they could no longer be observed. Then the screaming stopped, and all fell silent. There were no sounds for 3 days. Fearing they were dead, one of the researchers used the intercom and said, "We are opening the chamber to test the microphones. Step away from the door and lie flat on the floor, or you will be shot. Compliance will earn one of you your immediate freedom." It was silent for a few minutes, and then an unrecognizable voice said, "We no longer want to be freed." The researchers were uneasy about this. After 2 more days of complete silence from within the chamber, they decided to terminate the experiment. At midnight on the 15th day of the experiment, the gas was flushed from the chamber and replaced with fresh air, which sent the prisoners into a dire panic. Terrified, they screamed, begging for the gas to be turned back on. One researcher recalled that it was as if they were screaming for their very lives. The researchers unsealed the chamber doors and sent armed soldiers inside to retrieve them, but what they found was a grisly and horrific scene. One subject was found laying face down in a pool of his own blood. Bits of his flesh had been torn off and stuffed into the floor drain. The other subjects were severely mutilated beyond recognition by self-inflicted wounds. Some had even tore open their flesh and disemboweled themselves. All of them had eaten their own flesh and were terrified of falling asleep, refusing to leave the chamber and pleading that the gas be turned back on. The armed soldiers tried to remove the subjects from their chamber, and as a result, they lashed out and fought back ferociously. One suffered a ruptured spleen and lost so much blood, his heart stopped pumping. Yet he remained animated and flailing for 3 minutes before he collapsed dead on the floor. The others were restrained and transported to a medical facility for treatment. The first ripped his muscles apart and broke bones trying to break free from the operating table when the doctor tried to sedate him. They used anesthetics to sedate him, but it had no effect. His heart stopped and he died. They decided not to sedate the remaining subjects. They underwent surgery without sedation but didn't feel any pain. Instead, they laughed hysterically and maniacally. After surgery, the surviving subjects were asked why they had mutilated themselves and why they were afraid of falling asleep. They all gave the same answer: "I must remain awake." Immediately, the researchers voted to exterminate the test subjects and dispose of all the documents and research on the failed experiment. But the commanding officer overruled the order and demanded that the project be resumed immediately, with the exception of the 3 researchers joining the subjects inside the chamber to further evaluate the tests. Horrified by this proposition, one of the researchers pointed a pistol at the commanding officer's face and pulled the trigger. Then he turned and shot one of the 2 remaining mutilated test subjects. "What are you? I must know," he shouted to the only surviving prisoner. Smiling, the subject said, "Have you forgotten so easily? We are you. We are the madness that lurks within you all, begging to be freed at every moment in your deepest animal mind. We are what you hide from in your beds every night. We are what you sedate into silence and paralysis when you go to the nocturnal haven where we cannot tread." The researcher fired a bullet into his heart. Although his heart had stopped beating, the subject murmured, "So, nearly, free," and then died. Lonely Girl 15. Between June 2006 and August 2008, millions of fans watched a series of videos by the user Lonely Girl 15 on YouTube. Her first videos were rather ordinary, depicting the life of an everyday 16-year-old displaying the usual teenage angst expected of a girl her age. It goes on this way for quite a time, leading you to believe that her character is believable and ordinary. But then the series takes a bizarre turn. Lonely Girl 15 talks in her video blog about a religion that she and her family are a part of. A few episodes later, her parents are taken and she is on the run. She continues to videotape the entire ordeal even after her father is murdered. Lonely Girl 15 went viral and became an internet sensation overnight, with millions checking her YouTube channel frequently to see how the next turn of events in her life played out. Fans and curiosity seekers began researching and scrutinizing every video in order to help her or find out if the whole thing was a lie. The fans soon found inconsistencies within the video, which led to a collaborated investigation by thousands of fans sharing their findings on the Lonely Girl 15 message board, which was created to discover the truth behind the videos. A reporter from the Los Angeles Times was the first to provide proof that the videos were of a fictional character played by actress Jessica Rose. Lonely Girl 15 won many awards for the series and landed Jessica the title of #1 web celebrity by Forbes magazine. The popularity of the show continued even after it was revealed to be a hoax, and even inspired an episode of Law & Order: Criminal Intent. War of the Worlds radio broadcast.
Ladies and gentlemen, am I on? Ladies and gentlemen, here I am, back of a stone wall that adjoins Mr. Wilmer's garden. From here, I get a sweep of the whole scene. I'll give you every detail as long as I can talk and as long as I can see. More state police have arrived. They're drawing up a cordon in front of the pit. About 30 of them. No need to push the crowd back now. They're willing to keep their distance. The captain's conferring with someone. Can't quite see who. Oh, yes, I believe it's Professor Pearson. Yes, it is. Now they've parted, and the professor moves around one side, studying the object, while the captain and 2 policemen advance with something in their hands. I can see it now. It's a white handkerchief tied to a pole. Flag of truce. If those creatures know what that means, what anything means. Wait a minute, something's happening. A humped shape is rising out of the pit. I can make out a small beam of light against a mirror. What's that? There's a jet of flame springing from the mirror, and it leaps right at the advancing men. It strikes them head on. Oh, Lord, they're turning into flames. Now the whole field's caught up by the woods, the barns, the gas tanks for the automobiles, spreading everywhere. Coming this way now, about 20 yards to my right.
Ladies and gentlemen, due to circumstances beyond our control, we are unable to continue the broadcast from Grover's Mill.
At least 40 people, including 6 state troopers, lie dead in a field east of the village of Grover's Mill, their bodies burned and distorted beyond all possible recognition.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have a grave announcement to make. Incredible as it may seem, both the observations of science and the evidence of our eyes lead to the inescapable assumption that those strange beings who landed in the Jersey farmlands tonight are the vanguard of an invading army from the planet Mars. The battle which took place tonight at Grover Mills has ended in one of the most startling defeats ever suffered by an army in modern times. 7,000 men armed with rifles and machine guns pitted against a single fighting machine of the invaders from Mars. 120 known survivors. The rest strewn over the battle area from Grover's Mill to Plainsboro, crushed and trampled to death under the metal feet of the monster, or burned to cinders by its heat ray.
On October 30th, 1938, the world sat in panic as Columbia Broadcast System Radio Network declared that aliens from Mars had come to invade the planet Earth. Families gathered around their radios in fear as news of invaders from Mars using heat rays to destroy humanity was taking over the world. The broadcast begins with the statement that what the listeners was going to hear was a radio dramatization by Orson Welles as part of the American radio drama anthology series, The Mercury Theater on the Air. However, those tuning in after the introduction would be completely unaware that what was being aired through the radio waves was a fictional story. And since the first two-thirds of the broadcast was presented as a series of simulated news bulletins which suggested an actual alien invasion by Martians was currently in progress, many of those listening were fooled that this was an actual alien attack, which led to widespread panic and pandemonium. CBS, the newspapers, and police departments swarmed with phone calls from frightened civilians as they fled their homes in a state of desperation and panic. The amount of panic phone calls overloaded and short-circuited the phone lines. Families were unable to call one another, which led to the believability that an alien invasion was taking place and that they had destroyed communication relays on the planet Earth. Following the incident, the newspapers had published over 12,500 articles on the impact of the broadcast. Some listeners sued the network for mental anguish or personal injury, but the charges were dismissed. But one claim by a Massachusetts man who had spent his shoe money to escape the Martians was met by Welles insisting to pay the man what he had lost. Welles apologized the following day, saying, "I had every hope that the people would be excited as they would be at a melodrama. We are deeply shocked and deeply regretful about the results of last night's broadcast." Welles claimed he had no idea that the broadcast would send listeners into a widespread panic, and that his intention was to bring a little Halloween holiday fun into the households of America. The fourth kind.
Your credibility, how do you expect me or the audience to believe anything you're saying if you actually hallucinated the murder of your husband?
They weren't hallucinations. I just couldn't. It can be difficult to face the truth. And with Will, that's how I dealt with it. And no matter what you believe, the recordings do not lie. We're talking about things that aren't normal. Is dead. That is broken. And Ashley, she's still gone. These are hard facts.
They do appear to be.
No, God damn it, they are. You can sit there and speculate, but I have to keep hope alive. I have to believe in what we're doing.
An encounter in the first kind, that's when you see a UFO. The second kind is when you see evidence of it. crop circles, radiation. The third kind is when you make contact. But the fourth kind, there's nothing more frightening than the fourth. You see, that one is when they abduct you. The fourth kind hit the box office on November 6, 2009, and was based on the true story of the alien abductions that took place in Nome, Alaska. The story follows Dr. Abigail Tyler, played by Milla Jovovich, when she tries to get to the bottom of a rash of sleep disorders that connect the death of her husband with the mysterious white owl. Since the 1960s, hundreds of people have gone missing from the small town of Nome, Alaska. Psychiatrist Abigail Tyler begins hypnosis therapy on a group of patients who all report seeing the white owl in their sleep. Each patient describes the white owl in exact detail as one another. Upon hypnosis, Dr. Tyler discovers that the white owl is not real, but instead a planted memory to hide the truth. After the patients discover their real memories, the results are catastrophic and terrifying. The first patient shoots his family and then himself in hopeless desperation. The real memories are so horrifying that the victims cannot live with knowing. The movie continues on, all the while switching between documented footage and the actor portrayals. The movie does a great job of making the events seem real. Before the film even begins, Milla Jovovich gives the following statement.
I am actress Milla Jovovich, and I will be portraying Dr. Abigail Tyler in The Fourth Kind. This film is a dramatization of events that occurred October 1st through the 9th of 2000 in the northern Alaskan town of Nome. To better explain the events of the story, the director has included actual archive footage throughout the film. This footage was acquired from Nome psychologist Dr. Abigail Tyler, who has personally documented over 65 hours of video and audio materials during the time of the incident. To better protect their privacy, we have changed the names and professions of many of the people involved. Every dramatized scene in this movie is supported by either archived audio, video, or as it was related by Dr. Tyler during extensive interviews with the director. In the end, what you believe is yours to decide. Please be advised that some of what you're about to see is extremely disturbing.
I personally found the film to be very intriguing and terrifying. The curious side of me wanted to believe some of the story was true, but the insistence of the filmmakers' claim that the events really happened is so persistent that it's almost insulting. The use of archived footage used to exaggerate the realism of the movie is an overused, borrowed technique used by films such as The Blair Witch Project and Paranormal Activity. While this technique does lend a certain credibility to the film, the laziness in the execution of trying to make the story appear true is evident when you do a little research into the true events. Although the filmmakers did create a webpage or two, retelling the story in an editorial style, it was obvious that it was a fake for the sole purpose of trying to make the events seem more realistic. Nowhere else will you find these cases documented. Why is that? Because it never happened. It was all part of the movie magic in an attempt for higher ratings. None of the people in the actual footage were credited in the film. Why is that? Because they were paid actors. In the archived footage, the real Dr. Abigail Tyler is played by a not well-known actress that goes by the name of Charlotte Milchard. While the movie was very entertaining and showcased the always stunning Milla Jovovich, the facts that prove the story really happened are moot and non-existent. I did, however, want very much to entertain the idea that the story was true, and even obsessively tried to locate any information that would prove its authenticity. What I discovered was that Nome, Alaska did have a high volume of disappearances, which inspired the movie. 1 in 1,000 people go missing in Alaska every year. That's more than double the rate of the entire United States. Alaska has an estimated 3 million lakes, 3,000 rivers, and 39 mountain ranges, making it an easy place to disappear and never be found. But the rate was so high, the FBI began an investigation in 2005 to research the unusual high rate of disappearances. The bodies of the missing persons were never found.